Okay. Where to start? First of all, you talked about not understanding, and you phrased it this way too. You talked about not understanding why Godlesshayes, or whatever his name is, why he doesn't understand a good God doing bad things, or not preventing bad things. Really? I mean, the God is supposed to be love, right? I mean, isn't that what it says in the doctrine? How is that so hard for you to understand why people would not understand that? And you also had pointed out that, you were upset that his response to you was, that he wasn't just asking you questions back, or that he was making assumptions, or, well, I got questions. And that being my first question is, how do you correlate in your mind an entity that claims that he is love itself, and not only allows bad things to happen in the world, but created evil in the first place. He created calamity in order to be a savior, and it says so in his doctrine, which is divinely inspired by him. And supposedly he can't lie, and this is the doctrine you have faith in. Who created evil? Who allowed evil? Who, out of anybody or any entity, has the power to do anything about evil? And you could try to put that back on free will. It's not going to work. You can try to say that, it's all our fault because we're choosing evil or whatever. It doesn't work. None of those arguments, none of the arguments that all of us atheists have heard and had 1,000 times work. None of them work logically. So I would just like to know, how do you correlate in your mind worshiping a God, as I said, that not only allows evil to happen today, and has ever since apparently the beginning of time, but created it? And you had asked something along the lines of, tell me where in the Bible it says that life is going to be perfect. Something along those lines. Well, there are places in the Bible, and I will post them in the details of this video. And I mean, just to give you a basic overview, where basically Jesus is saying, if you have the faith of, a mustard seed, that you'll be able to say to a mountain, move, and the mountain will move. Now, granted, this doesn't relate, or doesn't make non-believers accountable for having the ability to move mountains, but it always makes me wonder, what are you Christians or you believers, what are you praying for? Because apparently, according to your doctrine, even if you have very small amount, because a mustard seed is small, even if you have a very small amount of faith, you should be able to move mountains. So why are there still poor people? Why are there still people starving to death? Why? You guys have the power to do that, not us non-believers. So to sit there and try to put that, on Godless and say, oh, well, what are you doing? You're just sitting there in your house eating ice cream, and you're not doing anything to fix the problems. Well, what are you doing? You're the one with faith. You're the one with all this power, and I'm sorry, but your doctrine does tell you that you're able to do things that should be miracles in and of themselves. So that, begs the question, do you guys just really not have faith in this God? Is that really, if you were to be honest with yourself, is that really what it comes down to? Is it maybe, maybe it's my theory. Maybe my theory is accurate. You want to hear my theory? My theory is this, that just like I have an addiction, you have an addiction. And your addiction is religion. And the reason why you have the addiction that you have is because you have no love in your heart. You don't. If you cared about people, if you cared about your fellow man, if you cared about humanity, you wouldn't be okay with worshiping a God that clearly doesn't care. You would be able to look around and look at your neighbors and look at your community and see that people are suffering. And then think to yourself, well, gosh, the only entity that can do anything about those things is God. Or I don't know, me, because I have faith and I'm supposed to be able to move mountains. So maybe I should be praying and these things should be miraculously happening. That's what you're believing in. It's not coming from a place of love, though. And, there's also scripture that says if you don't have love, then your faith won't work to do those things. So apparently, you know, that whole clanging cymbal thing comes to mind. So, you know, as far as from a point of view of righteousness, which is what you people are all about. You're all about, you think you're righteous because you think you believe in this righteous God. Well, maybe the true message is that we are supposed to reject this God. As, you know, fantasy as that whole scenario is, or lunatic fringe kind of thinking, but, you know, let me just get into your mind for a minute or jump into your world for a minute. Did you ever consider the fact that it's more righteous to not worship this God, considering the world is in the state that it's in? Have you ever thought that? Because I don't see, even within your doctrine, how it's righteous to be okay with these things, to be okay with... Here's another question for you. I've asked this before, but let me ask you. Why should we not forgive Satan? Doesn't it say to forgive your enemies? Why should we not forgive the person who supposedly, or the entity or angel or whatever, why should we not forgive him? We can take it all the way back to Cain, because we know that God allows Satan to do what he does. We can take it back to Cain. Cain was the first murderer, right? What did God do? What did he do? He marked Cain for what? For protection. Why would he protect a murderer if he's so against murdering? And then, like I said, your free will argument gets blown holy hell out of the water with the book of Job. Have you read it? Job was a righteous man. If we are allowed to have evil here, and we have to choose good out of an evil, fallen world so that God knows that we obey him, so that God is worshipped properly, or whatever God's reason is for that, which, you know, I mean, it says it in there. I'm sure you've read it. But Job was a righteous man. He was righteous. Why did he need to be tested? And the response to that is always, well, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean that, you know, I don't need to be tested, or God, I'm not, you know, sinless. I still sin. Okay, that's great, but I think that the punishment for that concerning Job, as far as losing his children and losing everything that supposedly God gave him, for the sole purpose of what? Proving a point to Satan. I guess, you know, you gotta have your priorities. You know, I guess it was more important for him to, like, win this bet with Satan that, you know, his righteous servant Job. So, you know, let's fuck with Job. Yeah, he's righteous. Yeah, he already worships me. Fuck it, let's fuck with him. Go ahead, Satan, do your shit. That makes sense to you? You think that's right? And all for what? Because this God has to be worshipped. And you think it's just so noble or humble or something? You don't see the narcissism in it? You don't see the tyranny, the arrogance? You don't see that God is holding the puppet strings, and there really is no free will if we were to believe in this God. And the reason we know it's not free is because, gosh, if you don't believe, what happens to you? You burn in hell for eternity. So, you know, that totally doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. It's a complete contradiction. So, you know, basically, I think that kind of almost covers everything that I wanted to say. Let me think. Oh, and the thing with miracles, it is ironic, and you have to admit that, you know, anytime something good happens, Christians and believers, whatever, it's all attributed to their God, whatever God they're worshiping. There's many of them. It's always their God did it. Oh, it's a miracle. God did this. God did that. But anything bad that happens, it's humans' fault. It's our fault. There's not enough believers in the world. No, that whole line of thinking is completely illogical. And what I don't understand, this is what I don't understand. Why is it so easy for you to hate your fellow man, but so easy to give this praise and worship to this God? I mean, I know that I can't disprove God to you, but you know that you can't prove God to me. There is no 100% proof of your God. If that were true, then it wouldn't say that you need faith, right? What would you need faith for if God actually gave you a reason to believe in him? And, you know, I'm sorry, but, you know, in my life, in my environment, my universe, faith, you know, if I'm going to have faith in somebody, if I'm going to trust somebody, it has to be earned. It Has this God earned your trust? And if so, how? How? Because he gave you a supposedly divinely inspired book that said, oh, well, when you die, if you believe in me, you're going to go to this mystical place called heaven, and everything's going to be wonderful? That's all you need? What about all the other gods? What about all the other religions? What's wrong with those? Why are those ones incorrect and yours is right? I just want to know. What's the reasoning behind it? I don't get it. But what I see a lot, and this is predominantly what, I was thinking when I was watching this argument between you and Godless. It's just the amount, every time I see these kind of things, or these arguments, or these debates go on, I see so much hate. And yet, Godless was getting all worked up, and he was saying things, and he was, probably being offensive or whatever too, and I'll give you that. But I think that, making assumptions about somebody and attacking somebody's character. I mean, you were talking about ice cream, you were saying you didn't know who to vote for, which I don't know how any of that's relevant. And just making assumptions on his character. I mean, what we're doing is we're attacking the fact that you have a belief that we can see is retarded. I mean, we can see that it's brainwashing. We're trying to basically say, dude, you don't have any proof for this. You're just making these things up. And that's fine. It's your belief, and you're entitled to have your belief. But your belief and what you're worshiping in is based off of hate. And that's what we're attacking. That's what we are offended by. That's what we have a problem with, is that it has nothing to do with love. I mean, just the simple fact that somebody says that they're a Christian tells you that either A, they haven't read the doctrine, they haven't read the Bible, they haven't considered what their own personal reasons are for believing in this God yet, and it makes no sense, or they were totally indoctrinated as a child with it or whatever, and are just thinking, well, this is what I'm going to do this because this is what my parents did. But there's no real logic to it. I mean, most times you can't even get them to tell you what their personal reason is for it. And that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, what is your personal reason for thinking that this God is love, looking at the world today? What is your reason for attributing everything that's good to God and everything that's bad to human beings? It's not like God didn't know what our choices were going to be. It's not like God didn't know we were sinful creatures, as it were. I mean, hell, he wiped out the whole world with a flood because apparently we were so screwed up. Which is kind of funny, because if we were screwed up, well, then I guess God screwed up because he created us, right? How does that work? It's a God. How does a God make a mistake? How does that work? And why are you so full of hatred for people who don't believe what you believe? And I'm sorry, but it seems like you are. You can't stand the fact that you just assume, like every other Christian, that because we're atheists, because we don't believe in any God, that it's because we're not capable of being humble. We're not capable of bowing down to somebody or something. That is totally an assumption. That's all that is. We're capable of bowing down to something. In fact, we took the time to actually read the Bible, study the Bible, and 9 times out of 10, an atheist is an atheist because they read the Bible. By and large, in my experience, that's been the case. Most atheists that you see running around on YouTube can argue with you from the Bible better than the Christians can. What does that tell you? It tells me that most people that claim to be Christian don't even really know what it is that they're believing in and haven't even really given it any thought. And that's what's so frustrating. Because then they come on there and they make these videos and they make these assumptions that, oh, you atheist this and you atheist that. You guys just, aren't capable of being humble, and you're just so proud, and, No, it's not that. It's that we read the book, we could see the contradictions and the lies in it, therefore it tells us it's false right off the bat. We know that it's BS. And here's the thing, and here's a little thing for you to just keep in your head. A lot of Christians, myself included, hey, we can hypothetically talk all day. Let's pretend your God is real. Even if your God is real and you could prove it to me 100% right now, miracle, whatever you got. Say you could prove it to me that your God existed. I still wouldn't worship your God. because I see what your God is all about. And he's not about the things he claims to be about. Love, mercy, forgiveness, being unbiased. He is the exact opposite of those things. And for you to have missed that just tells me that you're just using religion as a drug. You're using a religion as a way to make yourself feel special. You're using a religion as a way to condemn and judge other people. You're not special because you believe in this God. You're not special at all. Nobody's special. And that is the height of arrogance. That's exactly what you're trying to say that atheists are. How are you special because you're believing in a God that has the ability to do something about all this and doesn't? Where is he? Those are my questions.